Some really cool moments this weekend. Kind of cover up what otherwise was a really brutal weekend of baseball for the Detroit Tigers. Let's talk about it all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Monday, August 28th, 2023. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Be sure to check out the Tigers home radio broadcast on the Sirius XM app anytime, anywhere, as long as the Tigers are playing. If you search Detroit Tigers, you will get the Tigers home radio broadcast. Very cool feature, very easy to use app. Also, I'm a freak athlete. Some people are calling me a generational athlete. I, during the intro video, just sprinted across the room, grabbed my water, and made it back in time. I'm not trying to say I'm more athletic than Bo Jackson, but I think I'm in the conversation. So the Tigers this weekend dropped 2 of 3 to the Houston Astros at home. Like I said, some really awesome moments that we will get to. We're going to end the show on a positive note. Okay, we're going to end the show on optimism. We got a roster thing we got to talk about that might inject some optimism into people. We got 2 of the coolest moments of the entire season. And we're going to talk about how awesome they were at the end of the show so that we can go out on a high note. And the reason why we're saving it till the end is because I think the first 25 minutes is going to be brutal. This weekend was, seriously, like a Miguel Cabrera and Parker Meadows moment away from maybe being the worst series of the entire season. This was absolutely brutal. The Tigers got whacked. They got whacked upside the head for 2 games, very much so. And like even the, Parker Meadows, again, we'll get to that moment. They got no hit through 7. And they had 4 errors. You know what I mean? Like, and I tweeted something similar out. I was like, we were Parker Meadows away from this being maybe like objectively, I guess maybe the A's series at home where we kind of, that's probably in the conversation too. But like, goodness gracious. Just some stats for the weekend. Okay. Game 1, no hit through 7. Game 2, blown out. Game 3, blown out by almost 2 touchdowns. Torkelson and Green combined go 3 for 20 on the weekend. They have 4 walks between the 2 of them, which is decent in a 3-game set, but they go 3 for 20 together. Okay. Combined. The team went 4 for 25 with runners in scoring position this weekend and left 21 runners on base. That is absolutely pitiful. That is horrendous. 4 for 25 with runners in scoring position. On Sunday, they were 0 for 7, and then Miguel Cabrera hit a 3-run homer in the bottom of the 9th, and there was a man on second for it. So that's their 1 RISP hit in the entire game on Sunday. Just absolutely dreadful. 2 of the 3 games, they only had 1 hit the entire game with a runner in scoring position. They struck out as a team 35 times over the course of the weekend. Zach Short appeared in a game on Sunday and pitched in a game, I should say, on Sunday, which now makes him the Major League Baseball leader for position player appearances on the mound. He is the single position player with the most appearances as a pitcher this entire season. And to wrap it all up, the Detroit Tigers now fall to 28-37 at home. That is absolutely unacceptable if you want to consider yourself a real ball club. And look, that's something that I haven't brought up too much on the show. We haven't talked too terribly much about the home record, but very, very, very seldom in the history of sports, not just baseball, do you find a team that is a legitimate playoff contender, division contender, wild card contender, just remotely competent playing competitive baseball in the second half of the season team without taking care of business at home. And this team is like only 2 or 3 games under 500 on the road and are almost 10 games under 500 at home. 2 things important to note. 1, under 500 against both. Okay. Should tell you about the state of this team still. But most importantly, that home record is devastating. And like I tweeted something about along this lines out as well after the game was like this team all throughout the season, all year, has done this thing where they'll go on a little bit of a hot streak on the road, on a road stand. Then they'll come home. Everyone will be excited. They'll pack Comerica Park, and then they will lay an absolute pathetic dud of a baseball game in front of 20 to 30,000 people. And they've been doing it all year. Back in April, they were doing this, right? They started off like 2-9 or whatever. Then they won a few ball games. They went on a road trip, won a few more ball games, came home, laid a dud. Okay. Just in the last like month and a half, they've done it 3 times, right? At the end of the beginning of June, they have the 9-game losing streak. At the end of June, they go on a little bit of a heater. The beginning of July, little bit. They didn't go on like a W15 or anything, but like they made themselves like, okay, that 9-game losing streak was just an anomaly. Excuse me. They come home for the 4th of July against one of the worst teams in my lifetime, and they get absolutely rinsed by the Oakland Athletics at home. Then they had a series, 3 or 4 weeks ago, probably about a month ago. Got a little bit of momentum, came home, lost to the Twins by like 2 touchdowns. Now, again, they've beat the Twins more than they lost to the Twins this year. But then now you have this game. They go on a little bit of a heater on the road. They have the most home runs hit in a Tigers road trip since like 2004 or something ridiculous. Like they do all these, they're hitting a lot of homers. They got players on hot streaks. They're winning some ball games. They're getting people excited. Then they come home, and game 1 was fun, without a doubt, objectively. Okay, we'll talk about that at the end of the show. Game 1, one of the coolest moments of the entire season. Okay, almost made me cry. Then they lose by 7, and then 14, 13? They get outscored by almost 20. They've been doing it all year. They don't defend the home field advantage. They don't defend Comerica Park. And that's just so sad for a team that's sad is probably way too dramatic of a word, but that's so frustrating for a team that's trying to get over the hump and try and take that next step. They don't do well at home, and this team is gonna give me nightmares. I'm gonna see the letters RISP in my nightmares. Like it's unbelievable how just like horrible everyone on the roster seems to be with runners in scoring position. It's also very frustrating. I'm sure it is for them too. Okay. So let's start talking about the actual, individual performances of the weekend. And then, like I said, we'll end on a high note at the end of the show. But first, I got to tell y'all about our friends over at Dave. Finances can be so intimidating, and that's why you need Dave. Dave can make managing your money so much easier with an interest-free extra cash advance, free global tracking, and easy ways to find a side hustle and to make money. Dave is the banking app that's leveling the financial playing field for you. When you download Dave, you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. It's part of Dave's extra cash account. Advance the money you need with no interest and then settle it up later. You can even build credit when you settle up on time. Millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app to make their finances easier. Download Dave today at dave.com/MLB. That's dave.com/MLB. And you could get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. Download the Dave app now or go to dave.com/MLB. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Eligibility criteria and instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve, member FDIC. All right, everybody. Welcome back. Segment 2 here, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all for tuning in, making us your first listen every day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We'll be back tomorrow recapping Game 1 against the New York Yankees. We'll preview that series at the very end of the show. Be sure to check out the Tigers home radio broadcast on the Sirius XM app, by the way. Just search Detroit Tigers, and you'll be listening to the Tigers home radio broadcast anytime, anywhere. So let's get into some of these individual performances. We'll start with the pitching. Matt Manning, good. Nearly everybody else that took the mound this weekend, bad. If you just want the super quick rundown version of it, right? I don't think that's that bad of a take. Matt Manning gets the nod on Friday in a game in which he goes 6 1/3, 1 hit, 1 run. It wasn't earned. No walks, 3 strikeouts. He was rolling, and it's really frustrating that he left with an injury. I haven't heard any update at all on it. The way he explained it to Matt Shepard was like when you're swinging a golf club and you just get it like a little bit of back tightness when you're swinging a club on 18. I have no clue what that means in terms of like how long he's going to be like out. I don't know if that means he's missing a start, if he's shut down for the year, if he's perfectly fine. I don't, anything in between. I have no clue. But this outing, he was really good. And we've talked about it before. When his fastball is located well, it does not need swings and misses to be effective, right? I know timing of this comment is probably not the best because Tyler Holton finally proved he was a human being. But like Tyler Holton's been really good all year. He doesn't have crazy swing and miss stuff, right? Like some pitches are just effective and they just induce weak contact or cans of corn, right? Like you don't need... It's the most efficient, but you don't need a swing and a miss necessarily to be a good pitcher at the major league level. We have thousands of examples of that. So he threw the fastball a lot. It was effective. He had the upper hand against a really good lineup. He probably should have had a no-hitter again. The only hit recorded in this game was a ball that Zach Short booted across the infield. And I don't know. I just said that. I think if this is like a 3-hit game, I think we're all looking at that like, yeah, that's probably a hit. I think we got a little too nitpicky with it. But like also scoring this year, Cody Stavenhagen of The Athletic and Kieran, both of them over at Turning the Corner Pod, they've done a great job of kind of talking about and making public all over Twitter or X or whatever it's called now, just kind of the fact that a lot of scorers are scoring games very towards everything's a hit more so than the other way around. And I think that, in today's day and age of baseball, that was kind of always going to be a hit. But great performance from Manning, all because he had fastball command. That's really, it wasn't, he didn't have a ton of whiffs on his slider. He didn't have a ton of whiffs on, like, he threw the curveball. I thought the curveball looked good. He didn't have like a ton of swings and misses on anything. He wasn't, like crazy efficient. He was out there for the 7th, which is something he doesn't do too terribly often. But as a whole, his performance is inning to inning, like live and die by fastball command. And in this one, he had it. He was painting it, and no one was really able to get solid contact on it because it was just constantly on the black. So I thought that he looked really good. And that's a few outings in a row where he's thrown the fastball like 50-60% of the time, and it's worked out pretty well for him. And we've been clamoring for that all season. And I hope that he just needs a little bit more strikeout ability. And I think that people will get back on board with him, but still a ways to go. And, I'm not going to get fooled again. Last time I said he was turning a corner, he went out, and his next 3 outings were his 3 worst outings of the year. So we're going to cool it on the Jets a little bit there, but he looked good in this one. Who else started? We'll just do the starting pitching first. Eduardo Rodriguez, his cutter just got absolutely ripped. Like, there's not too much else to say about that one either. Not going to reinvent the wheel. I've been saying that so much lately. I don't know why. My 2 favorite sayings for whatever reason lately are, it's not rocket science and I'm not reinventing the wheel. I need to be more creative because I just keep repeating those 2 sayings over and over again. I'm annoying myself. But it's not it's not rocket science, It's not that complicated though. Like his fastball, I thought was relatively effective. He left a couple of them over the heart of the plate. But his cutter got absolutely smoked. Like absolutely smoked in this game. It was beyond ineffective. One of the most ineffective I've seen from him as a Tiger. It became unthrowable at one point. Every single time he threw it, it just got absolutely ripped. He goes 4 2/3, 5 hits, 4 runs, 4 walks, and 1 strikeout. I mean, this was just not good. 1 strikeout, 4 walks is also like very not on brand for him. Not that he's like a 13K per nine guy or anything, but he's a low walk guy and certainly has been this year. And so whatever, we'll chalk it up to just playing a really, really good lineup that really needs to win some ball games right now, kind of more than they ever have this year. And we'll move on. But yeah, really the biggest thing was just the cutter. And I don't know how that, did he just drop $2 million off his contract? Well, conspiracy theory time. And then the final starter for this weekend, who the heck started Sunday's game? Why am I just like totally blanking? Oh, Alex Faedo. Yeah, this was just a very classic first time through the lineup. He looked pretty good, didn't he? And then the second time through the lineup, he didn't. And then the third time through the lineup, he got absolutely blasted. Like that's just how Alex Faedo has been most of his major league career. Like that's why so many people are like, next year he's gonna head to the pen. Like if he has a spot on this major league roster long term, it's gonna be out of the bullpen. And that's, again, like I say it every time I say this, that's not a bad thing. People get so like offended by that. You need good relievers. That like that's only 5 pitchers in the entire organization are starters at the major league level every year. Like there's like way more relievers in the world. I don't know what to tell you. Like that's not a bad thing. And I think that he can be a really darn good reliever. I mean, his fastball is already decent. And if you put him out of the pen, I think maybe you get even a few more ticks in velocity. The slider is lethal. And the changeup doesn't even need to be that good anymore for him to be an effective reliever. I really, really like the prospect and the potential of Alex Faedo even being a high leverage reliever down the road. I have not seen anything this year to change my stance that, a lot of people planted in the ground 5 years ago with this guy at this point, that he's probably just not a major league starter. That all being said, with a month left in the season, I'm totally fine throwing him out there every 5 days and trying to see if, he can prove people wrong. This next, month, not even month and a half, this next like month and change is all about player development. So if that includes Alex Faedo starting, then I'll bite the bullet on that one. That's fine. As far as the offense goes, like I said, they were absolutely dreadful with runners in scoring position. Let's look up right now on air what Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green's stats are with runners in scoring position on the season. Riley Green is batting .246 with a .676 OPS with runners in scoring position. Spencer Torkelson is batting .200 with a .644. Neither of those are good enough. And like, it's so funny because like, I have the thing on here that says big three, right? And I was going to talk about like, there was a time on Sunday's game specifically where we had 2 men on, no out with Green, Torque, and Carpenter due up. And I don't even think the guy got to third base. Like we didn't score a single run off of it. And like, that's just completely unacceptable. And like, this is a step in development. Like these guys are still trying to build off previous performances. They're still trying to get better and better and better. That's all great. We're still seeing them take steps in the right direction. They're not their finished products yet, either of them, right? They're definitely not, hopefully not even close to their finished products. But the next step in development for these guys is going to be, you are the heart of the lineup. It is vital for you to score runners when they are on base, because especially when you right now, always it's going to be important for those 3 guys because they're going to be vital to this team's rebuild. But like, especially in the year 2023, when you look at the rest of this lineup and like, if those 3 guys don't do it, you're holding your breath that like Andy Ibanez is going to come through. And like Matt Vierling, who's had a really brutal season with runners in scoring position, really brutal. Like you can't afford that. Like you can't afford to be the heart of the order and not come through in the clutch. So that's it was really frustrating to watch the whole team do it, but it was especially, I guess, I'm going to sound like a dad here, but like it was not like upsetting. It was just disappointing. You know what I mean? Like it's that classic, like I'm not upset, I'm just disappointed conversation. It was like, you guys are like Torkelson's had a good month. He cooled off a lot this weekend. We'll talk about that in a second. And like Carpenter has an OPS over 1,000 and a batting average over 300 with runners in scoring position. I don't want to clump him in necessarily with the other two. That was just kind of one inning out of the weekend that I'm taking out of it. But as a whole, like it's just like Green and Torkelson, man. Like that's the next step. You really got to take steps forward with runners on base, especially if you're going to be heart of the lineup hitters on this team long term. Let's keep the ball rolling. I do want to talk a little bit of more about the big three this weekend individually, and then we'll talk about the bullpen, and then we'll get into some fun stuff. Okay. But first, I got to tell y'all about our friends over at where Sleeper. Do you think that who should we pick today? Do you think, you know what? Let's be nice to Andy Ibanez because I just kind of called him out for no reason. Do you think that Andy Ibanez can homer tonight? Well, we sure do. And on Sleeper, you can swing for the fences for up to 100 times your payout. All you have to do is choose two or more players that you like and select either more or less on their stat categories like home runs, strikeouts, hits, and more. Get your picks right, and you could win big. I've been using Sleeper for years now. I'm about to have a Sleeper draft here actually this week. I've been using them for a while. They're quickly became the biggest fantasy app in the country, and now they're in the daily fantasy game as well, and they are absolutely crushing it, just flying up the charts as far as, you know, like those rankings and just like personal reviews and scores and stuff. So be sure to check them out. Use promo code LOCKEDON and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Be sure to check out the Tigers home radio broadcast on the SiriusXM app. Be sure to do that. It's super cool. Let's talk about just a little bit more on the big three. As far as the rest of the offense, I mean, Andy Ibanez came back down to earth like he was always going to. Matt Vierling, same conversation with him. Zach McKinstry homered. That was nice to see, but he also left a lot of runners on base. Miguel Cabrera we'll talk about in a second. Jake Rogers been sliding lately. I mean, he's to the point now where he might have an OPS under 700 on the season. Still a valuable catcher, still a very valuable part to this team. And you know, if he's hitting 9, then like, you know, you shouldn't expect the world out of him anyway, but definitely has been struggling lately. I think that's kind of it. And then defensively, like Friday was an absolute joke. 4 errors, 2 catcher's interference. Catcher's interference is super frustrating. Like as I'm sure a lot of you know at this point, I was a catcher my whole life. That's just one of those things where like it always happens in bunches. Like it's just always one of those things where like it doesn't happen for years and then it'll happen 2 or 3 times in a game or two. And you're just really frustrated. You're just setting up whatever it is, a couple of inches different than normal. There used to be some batters back in the day. I don't think it's really a thing anymore, but back in the day, there were some hitters that they got to 2 strikes and they would just extend the arms a little bit more and kind of reach back there and kind of shoot for it. Again, I don't think anybody was doing that on the Astros this weekend, but just a really frustrating thing. I know that Rogers can't stand it, especially like with, you know, in the 9th there with Lang on the mound. It's like literally, if you were to rank the people who could afford a catcher's interference free base the least, I think Alex Lang would comfortably be number 1 on that list. You just can't do that. So frustrating weekend defensively. We've said that a lot this year. It's really frustrating because they cover decent ground. They're not like immobile. Like the early 2010s Tigers teams, those teams were just like, it was 4 like statues in the infield. And if you didn't hit it right to them, you were just kind of hosed, right? Like Johnny Peralta played shortstop for this team. Miguel Cabrera played third. Like this team is like they cover ground. They just don't execute. and they just make really, really frustrating kind of boneheaded decisions sometimes. But as a whole, I think that really the biggest thing to take away from this weekend, if you're going to just look over the I don't want to call them expendable, but like the non-long-term pieces on offense. If you're just looking at Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson, I think Torkelson only had one hit the entire weekend, and it shouldn't have even been ruled a hit. Like that's an error in previous years. On the last swing, it was a weak ground ball to third on his last at bat on Sunday, and he just like got to the bag and he just got to first base, and they ruled it a hit. That was his only hit all weekend. He had a couple of walks, but coming back down to earth pretty hard. We talk about consistency all the time with him. Need to see more of it. And then Riley Green as well took a step back. Played the corners this weekend defensively. Looked fine out there. Looked comfortable and natural out there. But at the plate, he continues to slide. And then Kerry Carpenter just continues to absolutely do nothing but hit. So good for Kerry Carpenter. OPS over 900 on the season. Kerry Carpenter, by the way. Absolutely nuts. Okay, just want to talk about the bullpen really quickly. Then we'll get into the fun, upbeat part of the show at the very end. I think Jose Cisnero, again, I love you, big dog. I really do. I appreciate what you did for this team for 2.5 years. I have no clue why you're on this baseball team, brother. I really don't. And like you will never convince me that like he hasn't been effective. He hasn't. He's been giving up runs like crazy for a month now. Like it's just, you'll never convince me that someone in the minors couldn't have replicated his like ballooned ERA over the last month. So that's kind of frustrating. He didn't look great again this weekend. Andrew Vasquez, we talked about it a while ago. Okay. We were a little bit ahead of the curve, no pun intended, on this one. But, a lot of people asked me when we picked up Vasquez how we were able to get a guy with a 2.2 ERA on waivers. And we just had this conversation last week as well, so we don't have to go down the whole rabbit hole. But like, this dude's got an ERA of like almost 6 as a Detroit Tiger. It might be over 6 now. It was almost 6 before his outing on Sunday, where he gave up several runs. Was he the one that gave up the bases clearing triple, double? Like, I mean, yeah. So I think it's like you're seeing it. The FIP was double the ERA. He was in very low leverage in Philly as well. He wasn't like their setup man. He was their 7th or 8th reliever. And his FIP indicate and all the projective stats and whatever you want to use, it doesn't matter, were all significantly, sometimes even double his ERA. And I think we're seeing the fruits of that labor. I'm not sure he's going to go anywhere because like we need a lefty out of the pen besides Tyler Holton. Like we need one, and I'm not sure. Not like Shreve's gone. I don't know, unless they have a lefty that they want to give a chance in the minors in September. I would imagine Vasquez is probably here to stay, but there's certainly a chance that they do. But they're not just going to get rid of him for nothing because he is a lefty out of the pen. There's just a few of those guys that I'm just like, I don't really know why you're here. Not even strictly performance based. I'm not even saying this to like drag them for having rough weekends. Like they could have pitched shutout ball. I'd be saying the same thing. Just weird. Really weird. But September's right around the corner. There will certainly be some roster moves made then. Let's transition then into that conversation. That was a way smoother transition than I planned it on being. 40-man roster, there is an opening. Isan Diaz was put on waivers and cleared waivers. He has been optioned to AAA Toledo. So there's at the time of this recording, which is 10:15 on Sunday night, there is an opening on the 40-man roster. That could mean a lot of things. I want to shoot one theory down, at least in my opinion. I'm shooting it down. I saw a few people kind of ask me or just mention in general, kind of put out into the world, like Noah Syndergaard got DFA'd by Cleveland, and like that's what they're doing. I don't think that makes a lick of sense. And the only reason why is like he's going to be a free agent in 5 weeks. He's in his 30s, and he's been absolutely awful this year. Like that, I don't know. I just don't see any purpose. Even if you love Noah Syndergaard and your front office is like, this is like our like whatever, like Michael Lorenzen this year, we're like, we're going to take him in and we're going to make him a good pitcher again. Like, even if that's how you feel, why do you have to pick him up right now? Again, just wait until November and then give him a 1-year contract. Like I would be really shocked. I would be really, really shocked if Noah Syndergaard was the corresponding move. That being said, I am really excited about who it's going to be. And maybe I have pie on my face and it's Noah Syndergaard, and I'll be confused and I won't really agree with it. But we can, whatever. That's happened plenty of times before. I think that the more likely scenario is that someone within the organization is going to be added to the 40-man. I don't think there's anyone that's like coming off of the 60-day or anything. Like Casey Mize is staying on there. Like I don't think anyone's coming off to get put on there. So it's kind of interesting what's going to happen with that spot. For those who aren't aware, obviously Parker Meadows is on the 40 because he's on the major league roster now, but Colt Keith and Justin Henry Malloy, neither of them are on the 40-man roster. So that makes that kind of exciting. Who knows? I don't have an answer. I don't even have a prediction. I have no clue. It might just be, again, some reliever that's like totally not on anybody's radar that they just want to get some playing time at the end of the year. It might be super anticlimactic, but they're going to have to add those guys to the 40-man this winter anyways. So why not get a head start on it and get one of them major league experience in September? That's my thought. But we'll see what ends up happening. But I definitely did want to point that out because it is kind of exciting. Also wanted to point out Winfield Perez. I tweeted this out earlier in the weekend. He has been absolutely crushing the baseball in AAA. He was like okay in AA. He was solid. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't like, oh, we're going to see him in the majors this year. Good in AA. Got promoted, and now in like 27 or 28 games in AAA has been destroying the baseball and playing solid defense at several different positions. And he's on the 40-man. He was put on the 40 last winter. So I think that Winfield Perez is a sneaky candidate to get put on this major league roster for September call-ups as well. So something to keep an eye out for there. Only other news I have is Spencer Turnbull came back from his rehab assignment and was optioned down in AAA. He did not do well in his 5 rehab starts. I think that Spencer Turnbull has pitched his last game for the Detroit Tigers. I think that they're kind of, I don't want to say tired of each other, but like I think that this experience is kind of over. The Turnbull Boris thing has just been really weird. That's a really weird situation we've covered a few times throughout the season. I don't know. And he just like flat out hasn't been like productive enough, hasn't had good enough numbers to really justify like going out of the team's way to make sure he comes back either. So it would not shock me if he was a casualty of the offseason. But for the remainder of this year, it sounds like he'll pitch in AAA, or they'll like put him in the bullpen in September maybe to get one last kind of look and see if he can be a reliever. I don't know. Okay, let's talk about the good moments of the weekend. Miguel Cabrera, homers, awesome. And it's at Comerica, awesome. Just because like I always want his most recent home run for the rest of his career to be at Comerica Park. That's just how I feel. And like, that's a little selfish, but also I feel like that's totally justified and I don't feel bad about it. Like, I want to say that Miguel Cabrera's last home run was at Comerica Park. I very much want that. And now we're in a safe space where that is the reality that we live in. And so if he gets 0, if he gets blanked for the last month of the season, he's at least going out with his last being in Comerica. So that was cool. Very, a cool moment in a game in that we lost by almost 2 touchdowns. So that's nice. But the biggest thing from Sunday was Miguel Cabrera versus Justin Verlander. And like, I don't even care that Verlander won the battle both times. Seeing both of them like tip the cap to each other and like smile and kind of wink and nod at each other before that at bat, the first one, is one of the coolest. I will never forget that. That's one of the coolest moments of my, and it's like such a small, minuscule thing, but like that's how my like sicko brain is. Like that's just like one of the coolest moments ever. Like that's 2 legends that went through so much together and were teammates and friends for so long and poured all of their heart and blood, sweat, and tears and energy into one team and one organization. And obviously then Verlander, like that ended and whatnot, but it's just like those are two guys that went through it together, highs and both of them, very low lows in their Tigers career as well. And Just having that moment where they, again, I don't even care who won the battle. Like Verlander won, great, both battles, great, good for him. But seeing them, both in their 40s, just like go toe to toe and really go to war against each other one more time, and Miggy fouling off all those balls and kind of trying to get into his head and whatnot, it was awesome. And I have the video saved. I'll never delete it. The video of the two of them giving each other their respect before the at bat started. One of the coolest moments you'll see. So that was awesome thing that happened over the weekend. But the awesomest thing that happened over the weekend was on Friday night. Parker Meadows, in his first major league home run and his first career RBI, hits a walk-off 3-run homer off of the Houston Astros. I said at the beginning of the show, I'll say it again, that saved the weekend. Like Parker Meadows, I think I tweeted this out, but like we were Parker Meadows away from this being one of the most catastrophic and just absolutely awful series of the entire year. But Parker Meadows prevented that from happening. It was still brutal. We went through it at the beginning of the show, right? It was still brutal, but it won't be the worst series of the year because of that. It is one of the coolest things you'll see. Family in attendance, first major league homer. His quote after the game, "What'd you see, Parker?" "I saw a hanging slider." You might catch one in the ear down the road from Ryan Presley, but I'll be darned if I didn't love it, man. Oh, I love this game. I really do. Just absolutely awesome. Detroit showed out this weekend, and that's like, again, the frustrating thing about laying an egg like they did, but they didn't. Friday was in front of a pretty sizable crowd. It's just, just give this city a winner, man. Love Detroit, love the Tigers, love the game of baseball. And all that came to fruition at once on Friday night in a perfect storm. And no matter what ends up happening with Parker Meadows' career, whether he ends up being a long-term piece to this team, whether he kind of just like fizzles out, whether he's a fourth outfielder, it doesn't matter as far as that moment goes. Like that, we will always have that. And that's just what makes baseball so beautiful, is there's thousands of moments like that throughout the history of the game. And yeah, it's important that we don't forget them. So awesome. Seriously, just absolutely, like, I'm getting goosebumps again just thinking about it. I mean, emotional. I cry over like sports highlights, though. I'm such a weirdo. Like I found my thing and I love it, man. I stuff like that just really can. I'm so weird, but like stuff like that can really move me, we'll say. And like that's just one of those moments that just perfect. And that's what baseball is. Just absolutely perfect. Previewing the Yankees series, a little bit of a longer episode. I find it just, I feel like I shouldn't be held accountable for how long Monday episodes are. I feel like I should get off the hook for that. Every other day of the week, you want to yell at me for going over half an hour. I'll take that one to the chin. Monday, not allowed. I'm recapping 3 games. I go over 30 when I'm recapping 1 game. Okay. The fact that these aren't like 2 hours long every Monday is I deserve a thank you. Okay. The New York Yankees come into town again at Comerica Park. Hopefully we can get this home record situation situated. That was worded really weirdly, but like the team, we have been terrible at home all year, and it's so annoying. Just kills all momentum. It's impossible to go on like a heater and like make a run at anything when you can't win home games. The New York Yankees are one of the most disappointing teams of the entire season. You are within, I believe you're only 3 games different than the New York Yankees. They're 62 and 68. Pitching matchup 1, today's game, Monday's game, will be Luis Severino against Reese Olson. Severino has legitimately been one of the worst every 5th day starters in baseball this year when he's been healthy. Reese Olson, 5.29 ERA, certainly hasn't been great either. We know his problems. We got to see how the fastball looks. Then we have on game 2, Tarek Skubal against Michael King. I really like Michael King, actually. I think that he can he can be decent. He's got a decent fastball on him too. So we'll see what happens in that game. Game 3 on Wednesday is Garrett Cole So we get to see one of the best players in baseball on the mound, 2.95 ERA, one of the lowest qualified ERAs in the sport this year. And then we have a TBD currently on Wednesday, and then Thursday will be TBD for the Tigers as well against Clark Schmidt, who's had a roller coaster of a career. Highly regarded prospect, low, almost moved to the bullpen, came back, now down again. Just an absolute roller coaster. So yeah, there you go. Then we don't play. Oh, that's wrong. Never mind. I was going to say we have an off day on Friday, but that's not right. The calendar's turned over. Okay. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow recapping game 1 against the New York Yankees. I think I covered everything I wanted to. We've been saying all year, this team was never going to make it run at the division, but they've given you some fun moments. They got beat by a much better team this weekend, so I'm not really losing sleep over dropping 2 of 3 to the Astros. That's pretty much what I expected. I'm glad we didn't get swept. I think going forward, outside of maybe the Dodgers series at the end of the year, you should be looking to try and take advantage and do damage, baby. Let's win some ball games, get some momentum going. Let's get some kids up here, get some development working, and just inject some hope and optimism into the 2024 Tigers. That's what September is going to be all about. So we'll be back tomorrow. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all then, baby. Go Tigers.